Hello and welcome to Adweek Together. It is Monday, April 24th, and I am Stephanie Paterik, Executive Editor of Adweek. It's Friday, and so I'm going to promise you a fun show today. Our guest is Ian Wishingrad. He is the owner of Big Eyed Wish, branding agency. He's the founder and creative director, and he is also a serial entrepreneur, and that is serial with a C. Third hat he wears is he is host of our very popular I'm with the Brand video series. and he's also a father of one with maybe another on the way and a wife. They're all quarantining and working together at home in Scarsdale. So Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So as I mentioned, you wear a lot of hats, but I want to first start by talking about your agency. So tell us a bit about what kind of work does your agency typically do?
So we are a creative agency. Like all agencies, I think everyone's tried to find what they do because all agencies are trying to jump into other people's lanes of work. PR agencies say they do creative and digital does this. But we found by trial and fire, when you're trying to just get different pieces of business, that we belong right where we started, which is a creative agency. We do big ideas. We make ads in whatever form that comes in, whether they're on Instagram or television or YouTube. But we've tried to really hone in on what we're good at and double down there and not try to say we do media and influencer, etc.
And how has your agency been impacted by the coronavirus? How has that played out for you guys?
Well, not well. I don't know anyone or any agency that's benefited from this. I can't even imagine if healthcare agencies have benefited from this because 70% of the U.S. economy is based on consumer spending, and advertising agencies are always there to help increase sales, and it's the easiest thing to retreat on as you're trying to be conservative. So I've had a client reduce our retainer. I've had a larger client come in with a new project that addresses the corona situation. But overall, as someone who helps come up with the ideas and try to go sell and hook the business, it's not a great time because people are not really interested in grabbing a coffee and exploring other ways we can work together. So I'd say it's not a good time, but it's a good time if you have a good balance sheet and you've prepared for this and have that rainy day plan in place.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up networking. If part of your job is typically to go out and create relationships and bring in new business, have you found any ways that are effective at kind of keeping irons in the fire at a time like this?
Other than sending a few emails, I really think it's batten down the hatches time. It's unwelcome emails for the most part. I think I try to be aware of the situation. So if you have an idea that's just perfect for the situation, absolutely go try it. But right now it's, you're riding the coattails of your reputation and word of mouth. And I've had some interesting three different inbound potential opportunities. They're not necessarily large, but everyone's business is affected. And sometimes when you are changing or pivoting your business, you are going to need to message it and do advertising around it. So I'm getting some calls in that sense, but overall, I would prefer if life were the way it was.
Yeah. And I know we've written a lot about the creative content conundrum that is starting to happen. I know that at the beginning of, I think right before Shelter at Home, you guys were actually doing a commercial shoot in my neighborhood. So you were still shooting. I'm assuming that that's changed at this point. Where are you guys at in terms of, making new creative? Have you had to pause your projects or have you found a way to go forward?
So we are currently developing some really fun creative that's going to be featuring some older celebrities. And we're hoping to be able to shoot that sometime in June, but everything's very TBD. And I have a really good skeletal crew. And I've also adjusted the creative to be able to be shot light. I don't know what else I could say other than that. It is not meant to be like a million bodies all over the place and multiple principles. So I'm definitely adjusting the creative to fit what I think will be a possible shoot in June.
And you mentioned that you've gotten at least one brief in sort of addressing the current time. Can you talk about how the creative briefs are changing or how you anticipate them to change in the months ahead?
Sure. I mean, I think this was from one of the largest companies in the world, one of our clients, and they had their own internal communications team share a do's and don'ts of, hey, we'd like to be able, we have a service that can be delivered to your home. We don't want to jump into the conversation. This is not an opportunity to try to, the same way people try to do clever, like don't dunk in the dark, or you can still dunk in the dark Oreo Super Bowl. This is not a time to be trying to find a way to thread the needle and jump into the conversation. It's more about creating creative in a fast, efficient manner that's germane to the subject at hand, which is that we're living at home and providing that service. But don't try to be cheeky and cute and write things that are too acknowledging the time. Save that for meme accounts. Save that for your personal accounts. Brands don't need to try to thread that needle. It's too dangerous.
I think that's such good advice right now. And on the matter of pitching, have you given thought to how you're going to do your pitches going forward? Are you prepared for virtual pitching?
I'm on a smaller side of the agency, so we rarely do pitch. Most of the time it is, as I said, word of mouth, referral, repeat business, retainer. Another thing you have to make decisions of when you're at different sizes in the agency game is, do I even have a shot at this? Does this make sense? I was a pitch a year ago when I heard the other players in there. I'm like, how is my agency, Droga, this one, with this budget? It's so silly to me. And I think you learn over the years. I've been in business as my own agency for 6 years, and you start to develop some discipline on, you really have a sense of, is this a complete waste of our time and resources, or is there a real shot here? So every now and then, if I feel it's worth the effort, I make the investment. For most of the part, though, I try to wage what I call asymmetrical warfare, and that is have the right project, the right relationship, and work it that way, and not try to think it's going to be some consulting group procuring. I have no interest in being that fun small agency that gets dangled in there just to show they knew how to mix up the pitch when it was going to go to whatever agency the whole time.
Yeah. And I want to just give a shout out to our viewers on LinkedIn for a moment. They're tuning in from all over the world: Dubai, Moldova, Kenya, Colombia. Anyway, all over the place. If you guys on LinkedIn have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'm happy to throw one or two Ian's way about agency life, brand life, or work from home life. So getting into work from home life, Ian, you and I share some things in common. We're both, quarantined with young children, young boys, and spouses. How much did you work from home before this?
Well, recently my wife and I launched a second company, and we actually rented a house in the suburbs before the corona thing and built an office in the dining room. So we're good for remote work. But we did have our son going to preschool, and we also then had a high school senior come over in the afternoon and watch him. So now it's been him 24/7. And I have to say, we're somewhat delinquent parents, because we have two businesses that we need to run. So he's doing a lot of screen time. He's wearing his pajamas the whole day. I really don't, there's no great solutions here, but we're doing the best we can and trying to juggle everything.
There's a picture of my 3-year-old passed out next to my workstation. This is where I typically film Adweek Together with my laptop propped up on that box of LaCroix. And for about the 20 minutes that we filmed this show, my husband, my son, and my miniature schnauzer hole up in a bedroom and try to be as quiet as possible. And then he comes out and takes his nap with me while I'm working. So anyway, I'm right there with you. We're all doing our best, right? I love, you and your wife posted some really funny videos on Instagram about how to stay sane and not drive your spouse crazy while you're quarantined together and while you're working together. What are your best tips there?
I think these are good tips that work for any marriage. We've learned how to work together because we've been doing it for years. So we had the horrible, crazy fights that felt like we're going to toss the business and put dynamite on them years ago. And so now that we both are so all in with each other, with our family, with our business, with investors, there's no time to be juvenile in how we resolve our fights. So I think I've learned most of the time to just I apologize, I leave the room first, I give space, because I tend to, even if I try to have an argument, I always am wrong. And I think my wife could have been a lawyer, or especially a litigator. I've never won an argument, even sometimes when I thought I had like the whole thing right here. I did this, you did this, I did this. I lose every time. And so I think the best thing to do is to just give space and shut up.
And you two work on the cereal brand together. That's a joint venture between the two of you, right?
Yep.
And so what is that like, starting a business with your spouse? How do you, complement each other, balance each other out? Or on the opposite side, resolve those times where you have different ideas about where the business should go?
Well, I think it's been a humbling experience for me, because I was like, oh, I'm Mr. So-and-so, and we're going to raise money, and it's going to be so easy. Wait till they hear that I'm going to do a cereal. And then it's all very humbling process. But at the same time, my wife is insanely intelligent, and she learns so quickly. And so she sits quietly, but she absorbs everything. And then all of a sudden, somewhere halfway into our investor calls, we were just trying to raise money, and she started to talk and I started to shut up. It was amazing, and people loved to hear from her. And she had gotten it down so well because she's naturally shyer than I am. And on the side of the business, the reason it works so well is she is the CEO of the business. She is logistics, she's operations, she's formulation. Like, so much of the business, which I thought was going to be like, oh, good packaging, good product, now it's about selling. It's not that.
Yeah.
You realize how tertiary the marketing part of it is, and how just the actual grueling nature of running a business is. And that's all the brunt of the responsibility she bears. So I'm very fortunate to have a partner that I can trust and do all those things. I find myself a little stunted at the moment, because our business plan was, we're getting into Whole Foods, we're all these places, and that was going to be our place to grow and get into. All those doors are still happening, but now we need to kind of reposition and make sure we really double down on doing a lot of direct to consumer, which was never really a huge part of the business plan.
So I mentioned that you are the host of Adweek's I'm With the Brand video series. And if you haven't seen this show before, Ian grills entrepreneurs every week on this show. He asks some rapid fire, really fascinating questions. So Ian, we're going to turn the tables on you today and have a little fun. And I'm going to ask you some questions. I've even got my note cards ready here. Are you up for it?
Absolutely.
All right. So first question, what is 3 Wishes?
3 Wishes is a high protein, low sugar, gluten-free cereal that tastes like all the naughty stuff, but made from healthy stuff.
And what was the genesis of the idea?
When my son was 6 months old, my wife was looking at recommended foods to help develop their Pinterest skills. Cereal was on the list, but when she went to go buy cereal, even the quote healthy organic cereals were low sugar. And she said, babe, what if we did cereal? And as someone who always wanted to build their own brand, and you have to look for those big categories that haven't been disrupted, I was like, cereal, genius, let's do cereal.
So what opportunity did you seek?
Well, the opportunity was, you have to look for a big enough category that has a consolidated group of incumbents that have gotten somewhat complacent with what they're doing. And in this case, cereal sales have been on decline. And I cut my teeth early in my career doing work on Frito and Pepsi. And I love like big American kind of broad things, not like matcha juices or like, mushroom teas. I like just, chips and sodas and water and things we consume in cereal is that super American category. And it felt like if we were able to develop a rich protein base with way less sugar that tasted pretty much as good as the naughty, crappy, desserty cereals, we'd have a win on the product alone. And then it would be on my shoulders to create cool packaging and make sure we make the buzz and get distribution. And so it's been like one of the most rewarding journeys, because we all know as creatives, so many times we fall in love, but it's our client's business and we don't get to make all the decisions and they send us to thousands of rounds. It's cool when the buck finally stops with you and it's like all on your shoulders.
And I was curious to know that. Did you do your own branding? And if so, did you give yourself a brief?
It was the hardest we've ever had. I mean, it took us 1.5 years. We went through different names. We did not do any of the things that we teach or practice for our clients. We would tell our clients, you need to stand for one thing, but we didn't believe a low sugar cereal was the big deal. We didn't believe a high protein cereal was a big deal. We didn't think just a cereal that's grain-free was a big deal. It was the ratio of those 3 things coming together. And that's usually a tough brand challenge, because we usually tell people consumers can only stick with one thing. You don't try to get them to know too much. And then we had trademark problems. We didn't know what direction we wanted to go. And it was just we were kind of running out of gas and we were getting close to getting ready to launch. and trying to fundraise. And we took a walk near the Central Park Boathouse where my wife and I got married. That my wife said, what about 3 wishes? Because we had, my last name is Wishingrad. We have a son, there's 3 of us, and we had 3 product benefits. And I'm like, oh, there's no way it's gonna happen. I checked trademark all night and it looked like we might've been clear. So I took that as a sign from the heavens above that we might have something really special here, and we were able to get the trademark.
Amazing. It sounds like that idea sort of helped congeal your concept. So why did you decide to use your family in the marketing?
Well, if you look, Dr. Kellogg's has been dead for 100 years. General Mills is not a person per se. Post, I forget the genesis of that. So we felt like it was a bunch of cartoon characters. We wanted to reach to millennial parents. That was our main target, millennial moms or parents that bring the food into the house. We weren't trying to use to get kids to say, Mom, give it to me. We wanted to reach the mom. And in this age of transparency and also efficiency's sake of just being able to develop creative, if we made ourselves the brand and told a real founder story, that works. A lot of people these days know about who the founders are. It's, yes, Warby Parker's the brand, but we know about Dave Gilboa and Neil Blumenthal, and these people behind it. We figured it was like a strategic advantage to come out and put a face to this thing. So that's why.
You launched within the last year. How has the coronavirus affected the trajectory of this brand?
So for us, there's many ways to go to market. We always wanted to be an omni-channel business, which we are. Our Amazon's doing amazingly. We're revamping our website in another week to have a really a strong direct-to-consumer funnel. But the main thing we wanted to do was, you could have anyone could sell anything on the internet. You've seen with mattresses or whatever. I mean, it's like a budget, and you have a website, and you have a label, and you could sell something. There's very scarce real estate on the shelves of grocery stores. So our whole play was to be the first mover advantage and be the first of the new kind of cool cereals on shelves. We accomplished. We're in Whole Foods, we're in Erewhon, Sprouts, Wegmans, about to be at Foods Northeast, and a bunch of other places. So it was great that first week where people went to stock up. I mean, it was incredible. And then we've seen the sales transition to Amazon, but it's not great for our business because we did want to invest mostly in sampling and end cap displays, because so many people before the coronavirus love going to the supermarket. It's not one of those trips you actually dread, like maybe Macy's or some store where those are dying. Supermarkets are a fun way to get out of the house. And so now, when are they going to ever let us sample again? Who knows? And people are running into stores are going for the household staple items. So we've had to rethink our game plan and make sure we really execute online.
And to that point, your answer to this question has maybe changed just in the last month, but what is currently your best channel for acquisition and your best channel for sales?
We don't get full purview into every retailer yet. We're so new, signing up, just getting the reporting. But I would say that our best channel right now is Amazon. And we're just starting to really invest in the digital. We didn't raise too much money. We didn't want to give the company away by raising too much money. So we really focused on spending the money in store and not online. So now we're trying to just spend intelligently online as well. So it's very spread out, and it's hard to know exactly what our best channel is at the moment.
And what was the best day in the life of the company, and what was the worst day?
I don't know. I can't say we've had a worst day yet. I'm trying to think. Best
or
day.
a hard day.
There's been so many hard days, but we haven't had like the I don't know. I guess I'd say the best day was hearing how well it performed at Erewhon, which is like considered the world's most influential grocery store in Los Angeles, and just it was hearing that it was on shelf, and we're getting calls from the owners saying it's moving really well, and we did nothing. Like there was no support yet. So that was the validators we were looking for.
And what brand is your biggest role model?
The brands I look up to in the space are Banza Pasta, the pasta made of chickpeas, great branding, great product, very akin to ours. Siete grain-free tortilla chips, another one. I think those brands I really hold in high esteem.
Would you ever consider making a jingle for your cereal, something along the lines of "When You Wish Upon a Cereal"?
We are, so I'm trying to make sure I don't want to share.
I mean, just one idea.
Yeah, no, I really like it. We're actually doing, one of our investors is a famous musician. And so we're doing something in that space. So yeah, 100% love that idea.
What was your favorite cereal as a kid?
My mom didn't let me eat naughty cereals. I had to have, it was either sugar was the fourth ingredient or lower. So the one that tasted the best to me was like Barbara's granola with dried strawberries in it.
This might explain your current path. What trait annoys your family the most in quarantine?
What trait of mine? Talking on the phone. They hate it. They just want me walking around talking on the phone. My wife's 5 years younger than me, and that delta was, she's very text-based. Obviously, I text a lot too, but so much of my personality, my business, my sales, my networking is just on the phone. And so having to hear me talk on the phone all day, she wants to kill me.
She needs some quiet time. Okay,
Yeah.
Final question for you. Ian, what is your superpower?
I would say my superpower is people. That's a terrible answer. I would just say I appreciate. I think it's being able to quickly understand and assess a situation, be able to adjust myself in any circumstance to fit that person or situation.
All right, great. Ian, you made it through the rapid fire questions. You survived being a guest on your own show. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I'm going to flip back to Adweek Together format here, and we have some questions coming in for you. I want to throw you at least one. So one of our viewers, Bruna D. Gioa, asked, what would you like to keep from this period working from home? And what is a major challenge for us both right now? Is there something that you're hoping, that you're learning, or a new practice that you want to continue after all of this is over?
Yeah, I mean, I've been cherishing how much time I get with my son. It's awesome. Like this definitely brought all of us so much closer, because he was in school half the day and we were busy working. So I love that. And I just hope it helps, help remind me that that's kind of all you need. And then I think the challenging thing would just be making sure we have someone to help take care of him, whether it's school or camp or something, so we can all have our moments apart.
Yeah, I'll say on my side, I think one of the biggest benefits has been letting my son see me work. I think previously I really tried to keep things separate. I would come home, give him all of my attention, and then open up the laptop after he went to bed. And so for the first time, we're actually having conversations about what mommy does, and he's seeing me work, and he's pretending to take work calls now. And so I think that integration has actually been a positive thing. But the hardest thing is, my husband and I are both journalists, and there are times that we're both on deadlines, and with no sitter and no school, those are the most difficult moments, because it's easy to feel guilty about screen time. I know all parents are dealing with that kind of guilt right now, but sometimes you got to do it as a last resort. So anyway, thank you, Ian, so much for joining us. We're out of time, but I appreciate everybody who tuned in and dropped in such thoughtful comments. Join us back on Monday. We are going to have a special guest, Bill Ritter, a WABC anchor who had coronavirus and has also been covering coronavirus, is going to come on the show and talk with Stephanie Siegel, who is Adweek's TV spy editor. So I think that's going to be a really fascinating conversation between two journalists. And Ian, I just want to say again, thank you for joining us. Best of luck to you and your family, and 3 wishes.
Thank you. Same to you. I appreciate it.
All right. Everyone, have a great weekend and be well.